Okay, guys, let's start our today's meeting. I believe Josh will join us soon. He's managing to install Zoom and find the headphones. So, according to the agenda, the first speaker today gonna be Sinisha, who will show two tickets which he implemented during this week. So, Sinisha, please feel free to share your screen and start presentation.
Okay. I'll just. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. So I'll just explain the code because I upgraded my background today and I didn't manage to make it work again. So I'll just explain code. Where is screen share on Zoom? Okay. Right. Okay, so I had two tickets. One of the tickets was, well, both tickets were related to synchronization between legacy stock and MSI inventory. So one of those issues was, for example, when we have to, when we delete some stock item, we also need at the same time to trigger deleting in the MSI. So what we have done there, so we created one plugin. As you can see here, it's attached to the resource model stock item, and here is the class which handles it. So what is the idea? When we execute delete on legacy stock item, we wrap everything in transaction, then we proceed with deleting that stock item, and then we have to delete also all source items related to it. So that's why we are creating search criteria, and we are using a source item repository in order to get all source items related to that product.
Why do you have to delete source items if stock item is deleted? So the stock item, my understanding, just to clarify, maybe you will help me. So stock item is an indexed entity, right?
I can help to answer this question. So actually, this is part of the story regarding the synchronization with the catalog inventory system. And when Sinisha is saying about stock item deleted, he actually means the stock item which we have in the scope of the catalog inventory. So the legacy stock item.
Yeah.
And when we removing the legacy stock item, we actually need to remove the source item which is assigned to the default source in the MSI case.
Because legacy stock item is source item.
Yep. Because legacy stock item was both a stock item and the source item because we had a single stock, and we consider that legacy stock item is like a single stock system.
Are those two entries in database now? Two separate entries, like stock item and source item?
You mean in legacy tables introduced by the catalog inventory?
Yeah, so we have stock item, catalog inventory stock item, and we have new MSI source item. Are those two entities and two entries in two separate databases?
Yeah, of course.
It's a separate tables.
Yeah, of course. So MSI introduced own tables, and we have a legacy tables, catalog inventory underscore stock underscore item, and the catalog inventory underscore stock underscore status.
Okay, yeah. So okay, then second question: why is it done with plugin and not event within transaction?
Our plugins are in the scope of the transaction.
But
Yeah.
here you create and you begin new transaction, so you you create original around plugin, and you wrap the original delete method with external transaction, so it makes transaction longer. Then it might cause. I think it can be an alternative solution would be to add observer that would be executed within existing transaction, not make it look longer.
I would not say that actually it's longer now, but actually the initial idea that currently we have the stock item in the catalog inventory, which now contains too many information. So now it contains the stock configuration, stock item configuration, and the stock item as a amount of some particular product on some particular stock. So actually, in the scope of the MSI, we are going to separate the data to different entities, and at some point of time, we would not call the initial stock item resource model at all. So that's actually our initial case, because currently we are stuck with an issue which sometimes lead to circular dependency, circular calling, because we need to support both new MSI tables update and the old MSI table and all catalog inventory tables data, and keep the data in a consistent way for the inventory. That's why we decided to use the plugins, but not the event, because at some point of time we would like to just suppress call to the initial method of the resource model.
Suppress in plugin, you mean?
Yep. So not to call initial method at all of the resource model.
Okay, I think it could be done in with plugin in that point when we would not make transaction longer. But okay, let's continue. I understood your motivation.
Okay. And yeah, there is one other ticket which was related to vice versa operation. So if you delete source item, we need to do that we need to delete appropriate stock item, but that one is not completed for this meeting, so it will be for the next time. So okay, let's back here. So yeah, after that we just delete source items, and in order to test this, I create an integration test. Here is integration test. So yeah, one of the things that I had to add, I had to register is secure area in order to be able to delete something. So otherwise, it doesn't allow me to delete anything in the test. So that's why you see here that as a first line. Then what I was trying to do here is to delete one stock item, and then to check source item is it changed. So as you can see here, I'm getting list of source items, and I'm expecting that they are not 0. Then after stock item delete operation, that's a catalog inventory stock item, then I expect it to be 0. So I expect plugin to jump in and to delete appropriate source item. So yeah, that's this test about.
One small comment. So you said you register a secure area. Did you try? I'm not sure, but I think the annotation Magento application area set to admin HTML should have solved that problem.
Mm-hmm. I can try that one, because I was trying to find in documentation, but I couldn't figure out which annotation could help here. Yeah, I'll try that one. I can edit into the same pull request. Okay, so yeah, that's about this ticket. Sorry, that was this ticket. And another one was small. It's just about providing possibility to enable or disable synchronization logic. So what's the thing? When you place an order on checkout, we need to add reservation, and also we need to update our CatalogInventory tables, our legacy tables, which may introduce performance bottleneck at some point, maybe. And also there are some stores which doesn't need CatalogInventory to be strong, consistent. Instead of that, it's enough to be just eventual consistent. So what we have done here, I'll just show you what was the main part. Let me just switch the branch. Okay, so this was a little change. What I have done. So this is a plugin which runs in order to update CatalogInventory, stock item, and stats table. So instead of just calling update stock item and stats table, we are checking if this system setting is set. So if it's set, we will update. If it's not, we will not update. And so when this will be updated, well, it will happen during source algorithm selection. So that's when we can process all reservations and do appropriate deductions. So that was the main idea. Also, beside this, I added just one more item with yes and no, just to choose whether you want to synchronize MSI with legacy method on checkout or not. And there is only one config helper which serves for delivering this config option. Yeah, so basically that's it. Is there any question or?
No questions. So just to summarize what you've shown, I believe on the next demo we will present the results of how that particular functionality work on the front end, because we just did not have a time to prepare the environment. But the initial idea of this fix was to provide the merchant to decide whether he would like to have a strict consistency of the data. So, for example, during the because we still have the synchronization with the old tables, so that during the checkout, whether we need to update legacy tables or no, and actually that's about the performance or strict consistency versus eventual consistency. So as I see, Josh is not joined meeting yet, so I believe we can skip it for now. And Yaroslav can share his screen and provide his update regarding the stock configuration and the stock item configuration he was being involved during this week.
Yeah, hey guys. So I would like to start from a short description of the inventory configuration module. So what is this module about? So actually in the legacy stock inventory functionality, we have all items configuration inside of one table. So we have quantity, we have back orders option, we have notify stock quantity, or everything inside one table. In terms of multi-source inventory, we decided to create a separate entity for the items stock configuration. So at that moment, we have only one one configuration here, one configuration field. It's a notify stock quantity. And we have rebuilt the database structure slightly in comparison with previous version. And instead of the source item ID, we use a composite key from source ID and SKU. And in the future, the first feature we are going to implement in scope of the inventory configuration module is the notify low stock quantity. So, and we have one more particular change here. In comparison with, since we have a separate entity for the inventory source item configuration, we don't have a necessity to create an item in database for every product. Because, for example, if we have default configuration for product, default notify stock quantity for some source, for example, we don't need to create an entity for an entry for every product. Instead of this, the database entry will be created only if we have some specific configuration for some product. But if we don't have the specific configuration, the default configuration will be used from the database. So we are working on this functionality at the moment, and it's almost finished. Also, so this module consists of the solution consists of two modules. The first one is the inventory configuration. It provides the resource modules and the database structure. And we have the inventory configuration API, and that this separate extension provides an entry points for working with the inventory items configuration. So for that moment, we have three interfaces, three entry points for removing the source item configuration, for getting some source item configuration, and for saving the configuration. So we can use these interfaces, and we can use these API entry points from other modules as well. And I believe that next week we will be able to provide the demo of the UI part because we are still working on that. And yeah, that's pretty much it about this configuration model at the moment.
What is the reason why you use source ID and SKU instead of source item ID?
Because in case if we use, for example, source item ID, we need to perform additional join when we're getting the information about the source item configuration. But if we have source ID, we can have just a single request to the single database, to this database, in order to get all information. Because we have on request on the entry point, we already have source ID almost on every request, and that's why. And previously we have only source ID as well. If we have only source ID and SKU, but don't have the source item ID, we need to retrieve this source item ID by joining the source item table. So we decided to get rid from that approach because it's like we had a redundant database call for this. So in general, we have the similar structure everywhere for the MSI tables. So that's why we decided to go the same way in the inventory source item configuration as well.
And okay, thank you. And what's the behavior of system without if I disable this module, right, or remove this module? So I will not have configuration for source item. In that case, all of the behavior that depends on configuration should be implemented with plugins or observers, right? And is it how it implemented now?
Yeah, that's correct. The functionality is implemented by plugins at the moment. So the plugin is set up for product save. At this moment, we might have additional plugins for that.
Can you show me? Can you please show an example of notify stock quantity usage? How it's used in this new implementation?
So the notify stock quantity is another task that we are going to work on the next week because we, in the scope of this task, we have prepared the basic configuration module in order to have like a bootstrap for implementing the notify stock quantity logic. So that's.
Do you plan to implement the stock notification in separate module?
I guess it will be a part of this module, but it's rather a question to Igor, maybe.
I believe it would be implemented in a dedicated module, so the configuration is supposed to be just a configuration, and all the business functionality which use this configuration is supposed to be in a dedicated modules. And correct, as Yaroslav said, the main reason why we introduce the inventory configuration now is because we have the low stock notification functionality as a part of the MVP, and low stock notification is supposed to work on the level of sources. So we would have both notification on the level of sources and on the level of stock.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and we also have plans to add the backorder flag here as well. So, for example, we need to check if some product in some source has a backorders functionality. We will use this module as well because we already have some logic for the backorders, but it's connected to the legacy configuration at the moment, and in the future we are going to connect this logic to the inventory source item configuration module as well.
One more comment I have, it's not related to this story. This looks good, thank you. There is a GraphQL API being developed for storefront now, and I think Igor, it's at some point that development will become more public, but for now we should not forget to synchronize with them and build the plans of integration of multi-source information into GraphQL storefront API.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and actually, like configuration would be pretty interesting part for the integration, because, like as Yaroslav mentioned, the configuration is pretty tricky part, because currently all the configuration are gathered together under the hood of the stock item. But what we are going to do in MSI, in our desirable state, we are going to separate the source configuration out of source item configuration and probably out of the stock item configuration. So currently we see that we have 3 different kinds of configuration, and all of that configuration is supposed to be managed by dedicated entities, and it could be gathered all together. For example, using the GraphQL, for example, it could be possible to query it with the GraphQL with one query. So yeah, that's a good concern.
I have one question, Yaroslav. It's I can take the notification task now, or you need some more days to finish your ticket?
Lars, you're probably talking about product alert, but not about low stock notification.
Maybe you are correct. Rewriting yesterday,
yeah.
I think.
Yeah, I propose you to look at the product alert. So Yaroslav currently is working on low stock notification, and the product alert is actually the functionality where customer assigned to the alert when the stock will get when some product get in stock. So he would be notified about that.
Okay, cool. After the meeting, it's possible to send me the task or the ticket?
Okay, of course. Okay, Thank you, Yaroslav, for the demo. So I just gotten message from Josh that he can't manage to connect to current meeting. So I will share his status. So Josh is working on. So I will share my screen. I did not prepare the environment to show his. To demonstrate what he's done, but actually he's working on product import functionality, and now he's adapting the format of the quantity cell to support multi-source inventory. So we got this request from Mark weeks ago, and we started to work on this functionality. And actually, that's pretty interesting thing that Josh proposed us to, because in this proposal, in this story which was described by Mark, we have the like source 2 equal to 300 items on some warehouse, and the source 3 and the source 4. So all of that is the references to some sources. But currently in our source interface, we don't have the field, the source code. So all we have currently is the source ID and the source name. And probably it's better for us to introduce a source code, especially taking into account that probably data for the inventory would be synchronized from the ERP system. So it's not so good to rely on internal Magenta identity, especially like surrogate identity, which is auto-incremented. And the source name is not used initially for that one. So source name is supposed to be shown somewhere on admin backend. So probably we requested this change to Mark Brinton, but Mark did not respond yet about that. So currently we will provide the support like source ID, because our current source item import export uses source item IDs. But probably also we had a conversation with Vadim from tech division, who has experience working with integration of ERP system with Magenta. So he was he agreed that it's much better to use some source code here, but not source ID. So I believe as soon as we will get a response from Mark, we will add the source code to our source interface, the source item interface. So actually, that's the work Josh is involved into, and he was about to finish this story. I believe he will have an ability to make a presentation on the next meeting. And he asked me to say sorry because he had some urgent affairs and he had not ability to join today. And also another contributor, who's Bartek, he's also can't join today's meeting. He finished two pull requests regarding the migrating the data from the both Magenta 1 and Magenta 2.0, Magenta 2.1, Magenta 2.2 to Magenta with MSI on board. And another story he wanted to show, so all the updates. So I believe we will present and we'll show, like, just on a next demo meeting, like look and feel and the demo presentation, how we make the checkout and how the checkout affects the old data, new data, and how we synchronize data between two storages. So Bartek can't manage to attend today's meeting, so I did not have time to prepare the environment to demonstrate. So I believe all of that would be presented next time. And yeah, so that's probably all for today. If you have any question, please ask. And okay, so thank you for your participation. Feel free to ping us in MSI Slack channel and ask any question. By the way, we already got several new questions from new guys who start following the MSI track. So there are pretty interesting thread now in MSI Slack channel. So just just follow the thread and you will get a lot of interesting updates on MSI. So thank you for participation and see you soon.
Bye.
Thanks.
See you.